Hello there. I'm Andy Brown.
And I'm Marco Basso. And together, we still transmit pictures, believe it or not.
This is a lame entrance.
It's been a long time.
Hello there. My name's Andy Brown.
And I'm Marco Basso, and I almost missed my cue. But happy Life Day, and welcome to the Star Destroyer Ultimatum.
Obviously, we are the creators of Bucketheads, and we're here today to bring you another, well, what would normally be a very merry director's commentary, perhaps coming a little bit early this year.
Is that legal?
I will make it legal.
We are also here to give you guys an update on Bucketheads Chapter 3, which unfortunately isn't ready yet, like you probably already guessed.
That doesn't compute. You're under arrest.
Turns out, unfortunately, we are just not there yet.
We want to make sure that you guys get the best quality with Bucketheads, and that just takes time. So much time. I cannot stress how much time that takes.
Look how old you've become.
Everybody's been very busy with their own lives, with maintaining a livelihood through what is the industry's largest strike to ever exist this past year in North America. So it's been an interesting year to get this out.
Certainly.
Not to worry, we are still flying half a ship.
But that's not the only thing that's been keeping us busy, because we've also been starved for Star Wars fan content ourselves. And a wonderful little script came our way that we thought was a perfect entry into our sister series, Tales from the 501st.
Tales from the 501st is another Star Wars fan film series that we had conceived actually quite some time ago.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
It's an anthology series. We wanted to do something where we're not locked down to a particular genre and don't face the challenges of continuity of a continuous narrative story. We filmed that. We're going through post on that right now as well, so there is going to be even more awesome Star Wars content coming to the channel.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
I think there's some dates coming up that would be very suitable for a Star Wars release. Maybe sometime in May, but again, I'm not gonna say anything now. That would be silly of me.
That would be silly.
Very
yes,
silly.
We're trying to learn from our past.
Wait a minute, how did this happen? We're smarter than this.
Apparently not.
To make a long story short, we apologize that we're unable to release Chapter 3 today to you guys and gals, but we do want to give another director's commentary and just some banter on how the last chapter came together. We're a little bit overdue for that. It is coming out 2024, hopefully early 2024. It's still being worked on very, very hard. There's a lot of VFX, and we're gonna get it to you guys when we can. You know, as always, a thank you to everybody who continues to watch the videos or hang out on the Patreon. We know we've been a little bit quiet there as well. Honestly, for everybody in our crew, just a challenging year with the strikes, as that is most of our careers and how we make our livelihoods. So definitely a challenging year to kind of keep this project going, but we've been so blessed, I think is really the best way to always say it, by such an amazing community that comes out and supports us in doing this, that we haven't given it up by a long shot. It's just taking a bit of extra time, but there's a really cool chapter on the horizon.
Another happy landing.
Let's jump into
A director's commentary.
a commentary on the direction of this here moving picture.
Oh God.
So getting right into Chapter 2, we've got quite a large time jump 1 year later.
And quite a large typo, 2 of them to be exact. This is what happens if you finish your final export 2 hours before final upload, because that's so close, we run it every single time.
I think we've said this numerous times, but I want to point out that so many people had eyes on this. I feel bad that I missed this. We all feel bad.
People who know way more Star Wars than we do.
We
and we know a
all
lot.
missed this, but yes, we obviously misspelled Sheev Palpatine by a mile.
So the cool thing about this scene is that everything you see was achieved in camera. This was filmed in the exact same volume studio that we're in right now. We are surrounded by giant screens that project this environment from the Star Destroyer around our actors, so they see what the camera sees, and it's all achieved without green screen, which saves a ton on VFX costs and also just looks better, I find.
Yeah, this was really cool. I mean, you know, when The Mandalorian came out, we saw, as did The World, that they were using virtual production, had designed this new methodology. Everybody was super interested. This was not the first experience for Marco and I doing virtual production, but probably one of the biggest up to this point. The environment we created, that hangar bay, is enormous. It taught us a lot about the design phase of Unreal and like things you need to think about.
When we say we created it, it was really created by 2 Unreal artists that worked their butt off. And then had some extra help from other people. Like a whole bunch of people came together and made this in their free time once again.
Yeah. So this was a super fun experience. Just really had to play a lot. We obviously came in with a game plan as always, and how this was supposed to go, and I think we did execute pretty well on it. But something to work with in Volumes is that, as you can see in the frame, how expansive this environment looks. It's not. It's actually it's a small footprint inside this particular volume, but it can be somewhat challenging to make it feel this large and expansive. It was really a fun, creative endeavor. Honestly.
Yeah. This shot right here is actually a fantastic example of how we were able to play with the technology. It looks like this general is walking through the door, but there is no door. He's just standing in front of the screen, and he's blocked by our actors in the foreground. And then we have the virtual door animate, and he starts walking, and it looks like he just came out of a corridor that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, that was a really fun shot to design. Fun fact as well on that shot, the floor is VFX'd in, except for the single path he walks towards Shannon, our
It's the only visual effect shot in this entire scene.
There's a really great part coming up with the TIE fighter. This is my favorite. David Lewis is such a menacing character,
yes,
I have to say as well. Did a fantastic job playing this oh-so-evil Empire. The little TIE fighter in the background.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss, a little bit of interaction in the environment, keep that frame alive, make it feel more meaningful, make the world feel lived in. I love that. That touch is perfect.
Also, whenever you see our general in green from the back, that's not the actor, that's a stand-in. Because we had very limited time with him. He's very busy. And we're very lucky to have him.
Sorry, ton of fun. Just admiring that. It's a great scene. I know Marco wants to talk so much about
the miniatures. I don't know why I said it this loudly. The Soteria in here is not a visual effect. It's a miniature. The environment is all 3D CGI. But it was very important to us to have some sort of practical element in there. So we did a little miniature shoot with a model of that ship separately, which was a ton of fun.
Yeah, and actually we got a feature film coming up next year that I think we're going to get to use some of that experience on. So
Absolutely.
Really had a blast shooting the miniatures. Also, the interior Soteria set here, absolutely loved it. What a fantastic job the construction team did on this thing. It was pretty huge. I think it was 25 by 30-ish feet. Probably a bit longer than wider, but man, really like beautiful design, down to the smallest nuts and bolts and things that were in this.
And we've taken it to a couple conventions since then. Actually, only one so far, but there might be a second one coming up.
Oh, now I have to say, this is such a hilarious moment. Torrin Soretta taking his orange captain's pauldron off. This moment only exists in the story because we got through 5, 6, 7-ish days of filming this chapter before, and this was in numerous shooting blocks too, not continuous, months apart, before realizing that Troy Mundell, Torrin Soretta, was supposed to wear that orange pauldron the entire time. So we had to write in a moment as to why it wasn't on for a good chunk of what was going on, which actually ended up being a very awesome, powerful scene that really does give you some additional connective tissue in their relationship, and Nomi and Torrin's relationship and kind of their psyches.
This is what happens when this is the danger of shooting everything out of sequence, and we actually shot this chapter backwards entirely. But it's one of the few instances where such a mistake actually led to a better story. It is actually a very powerful scene, I find.
I also love the shot coming up here, Nomi throwing the stone in the air that you beautifully get in the foreground. Love that shot. That's always a really fun one.
And it worked on the first take even.
Now I gotta say, I still think this works very well, but I do think this has come across as somewhat confusing to the audience or to certain people I've talked to. We have the shot, Nomi's just been handed the data pad, she's been told the night's young, you might still die yet. We wrap around to just barely see who's on the data pad. And apparently this has confused some people. We don't see exactly who it is in that moment.
Yeah.
In the next moment, as you've probably seen this before, which is why you're watching the director's commentary, we explain who it is on the data pad. I always thought that came across fairly clearly if you're really following the story.
It's called show and tell.
But I guess, I don't know, I've heard from others that this maybe wasn't the clearest thing painted and it left people a bit confused. I always thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It worked out. We experimented with having like an on-screen graphic that was translated, but it just seemed hokey and unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm never a fan of, I mean, inserts are very informational kind of shots. The more you can get away from inserts, the better in my mind.
Definitely. Oh, the red was a ton of fun. Yeah, all the lighting in the Soteria is practical set lighting. It was full RGB, so we had a lot of fun just playing around with different colors in there.
Coming up, one of our favorite environments ever.
Sorry, real quick, that was a cameo from our construction coordinator, Caleb, who built most of the sets there in the foreground.
Yes, he did. Got to give that man some screen time. And a new piece of lore that we've added to the universe, the cocking of the blaster.
Right.
I actually was scrolling Reddit the other day,
Very
and somebody was asking this, do they need to reload blasters?
Yeah.
I didn't actually go into the thread and read about it, but you know what? It's a fun little piece of lore. Maybe it doesn't make a ton of sense, but I don't know. I appreciate the liveness it brings to the blasters.
I fully agree, and we had a really fun interactive prop from a local prop maker who built that for us. I'm just going to back this up a little bit, because we missed a ton of fun little things to talk about there. The intro to level 1313. Now, I believe that was the second thing we filmed for this. It was an absolutely massive build that was done over the summer of 2021, I think. And
Sure.
It was during a massive heat wave where we hit over 40 degrees Celsius. That's probably close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit
I don't even know.
up here in Vancouver. And we had a ton of fun filling it with characters that live in that world, including this Mon Calamari chef here, who was created by our art director, Terry Chewy. That is him in the suit. And Andy had this wonderful idea of doing like an anime moment where like all these
Fish parts that he's chopping up, like
fly
dead,
up into
so-
frame. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, pretty much, not quite all, but a lot of the background you see here are actually crew members. They're people,
Yes.
so Lee Aaron on the left there with the Mohawk does a lot of construction for us. The two Jawas have been on Bucketheads before
They
as
were the
Ewoks. The gentleman that is rolling over as the 1313 title card comes up is another construction guy that's helped us a whole ton. A lot of these background are sort of our own people that we want to give back and give them an opportunity to be in Star Wars. The scrolling advert pillar, the pillar itself actually only came into existence because there is a load-bearing beam. I think that I-beams can still have a place in like 1313, but it didn't make sense to be right in the middle of the road. It just was kind of weird, or the street or the sidewalk or whatever they are. And then, we came up with this cool concept. We were already looking into LED technology and whatnot, that we could just build a enclosure around that beam that could sit 4 panels high. And then they had these scrolling adverts on each face that were adverts for the different buildings that we physically built there. We had a droid shop, we had a power station, we had the noodle bar,
And a strip club.
and a strip club. The strip club in Arabesh, they called it Andarkos, as in Andy and Marcos. I wanted to call it Jabba the Sluts, but they felt that was inappropriate. I still think that's
Missed
perfect.
opportunity right
Missed
there.
opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah, this was a challenging scene. So, what people may know, may not know, when the scene first starts and we have sort of both parties come together, the back wall, half of it is actually a video wall. Again, we were getting as much in-camera VFX as humanly possible, but this was early days for us working with LED walls. That was a challenge. There was so much smoke in the environment that we kind of hazed out this entire piece, and I remember coloring this was pretty difficult. You gotta figure out what works and what doesn't. This is a wonderful bit of VFX extension. So everything you see in frame here is physical, and just as we tilt up somewhere in about this area is a VFX handoff, they call it. So it is, taking a live action frame and blending it with visual effects in some way, a rendered out plate or, however that approach works. But so that was a real building facade, and as we tilted up, it would have looked into unexposed roof, and we VFX'd like we were outside.
This here is just a staircase in the studio that we filmed at. I really wanted a more photogenic staircase, but that's all that we got.
I liked what we got, I'm not gonna lie.
So this scene is actually the very first one that we filmed for Chapter 3. Again, we shot it backwards for some coincidental reason. It wasn't planned that way, it just happened.
Just pointing out, so as Marcus said, shot backwards. We shot this. It came down to materials and when we could use them and stuff, but this is where we made the critical mistake of not having the pauldron on Torin the whole time. And like after we finished filming this huge sequence, we were like, oh my God, how do we change this?
Yeah, it's a very special wardrobe situation on this show. This is the first time that we get to see some cool new abilities of Kraid. And he's fully practical here. He was puppeted between a human puppeteer and him being on a dolly that was painted out in post. That was a lot of fun to play on.
It was a lot of fun. I ultimately, that was us testing a process to get a hovering robot, a hovering droid. I think I would go about that differently next time. But, again, it's great to learn what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. We should. Yeah, we fine-tuned this moment more than any other in this chapter, I believe. Just this moment of breach and chaos ensuing, and it being chaotic, but still everyone being able to understand what's happening is quite the challenge.
Beautifully crafted room. This was a wonderfully built room, from many hands. Sean and Caleb in particular, the construction coordinator and production designer, but a lot of people involved in putting this thing together. It is a really cool room with the spinning fan.
Oh, I wanted that spinning fan so bad.
And the hand piece that Major has built. You just get a bit of a taste of it on the table there on the left in that frame.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of really cool props and set deck in that room.
Yeah, and then the hidden door here with our surprise frenemy.
Frenemies. I remember when we filmed this, I wanted all of this action to occur largely off screen and just be pieces you hear from other people, and I had to explain the sequence like 20 times, like over and over and over, because everybody would not quite see it the way I was seeing it, and I just kept having to go, just trust me, it's gonna work, it's off screen, what's happening off
That's
screen.
actually one of the coolest visual effects in there, with the little hand panel there. I think they did a great job integrating that.
It looked great, yeah.
That's full CG there.
The eyes, the insert eyes of Mark Meer, aka Oberyn Gunn there, had to be done as Mark and us do not live in the same city.
Second unit.
It was a second unit shoot from a local cinematographer around Mark, and he was able to just pass us that footage so we could piece it all together.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Wes.
And
So
like
that was chapter
it's
2.
over.
There honestly are so many good little stories and things I want to talk about in there. There's never enough time, but it was a tough piece to pull that one together. I feel like that's kind of where we really felt the expansion of scope for us,
100%.
at least. The original short film was in the forest in Panther Paintball. Chapter 1 was in the forest in Panther Paintball. There are different stories. Chapter 1 still was larger in scope by a long shot, but there was so much going on in this chapter. Our first heavy experience into virtual production. Working with the LED walls as set extensions. We'd never really done that before. Just the number of VFX. Like, yes, there is the large VFX space chase in Chapter 1, but that's its own VFX piece being cut with live action stuff. There's a lot more VFX handoffs and blends going on in this chapter that were more challenging.
Well, next up is Chapter 3, and that is where we really bring all the elements that made Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 great and put them together into one big orgy of Star Wars fan film goodness. I think I really just sold it right there, because we have a massive space fight, we have really impressive sets, and the story comes together, because that's how it was originally imagined. I think this is actually the final thing we can say here, that chapters 1, 2, and 3 were originally meant to be one episode, and we will release it as one episode once chapter 3 is out. So you'll have that chapter 3 release, and then you'll have a supercut that's going to be 45, 50-ish minutes, depending on how long chapter 3 shakes out in the end. And this is where the heater comes on very loudly and ruins our take.
I wonder how much of our take, the heater and/or I was gonna say AC, but it's probably been heater the whole time, has been on for. I didn't really think about it as we rolled.
I would have noticed it.
Okay, because I did when we were testing audio. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we got to remember to shut that off, and then I didn't think about it at all. That's gonna be hilarious if we have this heater.
Well, anyway,
Yeah, so anyways, we're back. Like I said, it might be a little bit rambly. Look, you have all been amazing for sticking with us on this journey, for caring about this project at all, and for supporting us, whether that's joining the Patreon and donating money, or even just sharing with your friends or talking about it to people. Thank you to everybody who's been here with us, who's helped us make this, who's helped us watch this, and have it become what it is. So We've got lots of other really cool stuff that we have high hopes to get to yet, but until Chapter 3 is out and until The Void is out, that next episode of Tales from the 501st.
Working title may still change.
What I know it as is The Void. That's going to be our aim. Oh, he loves when I do this. We'll add to the heater noises.
That's for Chapter 3 slate.
And as we sign off, we say,
Happy Life Day!